You're listening to The Lyndia Grant Show. Think on these things with Lyndia Grant.
Well, good evening, Radio 1 listeners. Thank you for tuning in to The Lyndia Grant Show. This is Friday, September the 14th, and we are so pleased that you're here with us this week. We are having our attorney, Dana Stebbins, come back. She's usually on with us once a month. And so this time she's going to be on talking about the state of democracy. And she's got some very powerful points that she wants to talk to us about what will happen if Donald Trump is elected. But first, we're going to go to our first guest. We are here on Spirit 1340 WYCB. In case you're listening anywhere in the world, because WYCB, we record our show and it's on YouTube and people listen. We heard from somebody in Romania today, Dr. J. So we making our way around the world. So I just wanted the station identification. This is the Lyndia Grant Show right here in Washington, D.C. on Radio 1 Spirit 1340 WYCB. We've been on for 15 years. And now we're going to talk to our regular Dr. Julianne Malvo. She is a former president of Bennett College, emeritus, and she's a former dean and speaks around the world. So she talks to us, has been on now with us a couple of years or so, talking about politics. And tonight we pre-record, so we just finished with the debate. Dr. J, talk to us.
Oh, Lyndia, how sweet it is.
Yes, it
to watch
is.
that debate. Kamala Harris handled that man.
Yes,
I mean, she handled him. She got under his skin. She rankled him. I mean, she won it. I mean, if there was a song for her, it would be Rock Steady. She rocked steady, but she looked pleasant. He was making all these faces. I mean, his facial expressions were horrible. I mean, he never smiled. His
body language, the way he kept his arm folded and leaning over.
Exactly. He wanted to say something, and you know, toward the end, they had a back and forth a couple times. He would not defer to the moderators at all, and that shows you his lack of respect, his lack of respect. But, you know, he was easily flustered, and she was great. She came out the gate. First of all, she walked up to him and put her hand out.
She walked all the way over to his station, all the way up.
And put her hand out and said, Kamala Harris. In other words, I ain't scared of you, dude.
That's right.
I am so not
and
scared
it was
of
her
you.
first time meeting him in person, remember? They had not met in person.
But she gave him at least some respect, but she walked up to him. But he basically didn't give her any. He was rude. He was disgraceful. He called names. He said stupid. Everything we knew he was going to do. The lies poured out of him like water coming out of a spout. There's lie after lie after lie. I was just watching CNN. They said they caught him in 33 lies.
You see?
Her in one. 33 lies. Are we surprised? No, because he lies just like he sits down. And
yes,
he
does.
He told him 81 million people fired him. He talked to him about his small crowd, said, I challenge you to go to a rally, go to a Trump rally. The crowds are small and people start leaving early because they bored. And he didn't like that either. You could tell what he didn't like. I mean, he really had a rough time with that. But his comments were just not tethered to reality. You know, he said he saved Obamacare. No, he tried to end Obamacare.
Yes,
and the thing about people, immigrants eating cats, I just find that so racist. You know, just so racist, because he mentioned Haitians in particular. Well, you know, my grandfather on my mother's side was Haitian. And Haitians don't eat your cats. You know, that's just, and the Springfield, Ohio police say they never had a complaint about that. J.D. Vance put it out there, lie after lie after lie after lie. I mean, there were so many lies, I can't even get to all of them. But what I would say, you know, with his foreign policy chops, the three dictators that we all love to hate, Turkey, Viktor Orban, the Korean president, and Putin, those are his references for being good at foreign policy. I don't think so. And then I had to laugh. He tried to turn one of her lines on her when he said, "I'm speaking." And then does that sound familiar to you? That would have to make you laugh because it was just silly.
Oh, he had intentions of doing it,
but it didn't make any sense contextually.
No,
it was just okay. I'm going to say that because I'm going to say that. He said he had no regrets for January 6th. We all and she came back. She said, "I was there. I was there. I experienced that." He lied about non-citizen voting. He said about her racial identity, the moderator asked him why he said she just decided she was black when that wasn't the truth. He said, "Well, I don't care what she is. She can be whatever she wants to be." Well, guess what she wants to be? President of the United States, dude. That's what she wants to be. So, these little he was really hilarious. Now, I will say on the economy, neither of them was specific about reducing inflation, and that's because they can't. I mean, presidents don't reduce inflation. Markets reduce inflation. But they both talked about reducing inflation. I think they both have flawed answers there. But by and large, I think she did extraordinarily well. I think she helped.
I want to say, Dr. Julianne, when he was talking about what she should have done while she was vice president, it was too ignorant to even comment on because she was not the president. Joe Biden is the president, and she can't just go in there and do what she wants. She's been his vice president.
No, in fact, the role of the vice president is very fuzzy. The vice president does what the president tells them to do.
Exactly.
But what she said? She said, "You're not running against Joe Biden. You're running against me." She did that very well. That was a great line. It's like, you running against me. So, get information, dude. One of the things that was very interesting, and her line about we won't go back and we're going to turn the page, she kept casting herself as the candidate of the future, not of the past.
Yes.
All I can say is that I think she did a great job. She held him in the defensive. She did well. Afghanistan, he tried to attack her on that. She came back on that. She walked the fine line between not repudiating Biden and claiming her own space.
That's right.
But one thing that she didn't do that a lot of people wish she had is just said something to be apologetic to the people who lost their loved ones in Afghanistan. But that wasn't necessarily necessary, but it would have been a nice touch. I'll say that. But in any case, the whole thing, I just sat there grinning. He tried to connect her to her father, Dr. Don Harris, who's an economist who I know well from back in the day. He was a Marxist professor of economics at Stanford University, but she's not her daddy. Right. And so to try to connect that, I think, was also extremely wrong. But in any case, he did what he did. And are we surprised? No. None of us are surprised. One of the great pieces of news made me smile. Taylor Swift, who I think might be the biggest star, and she just, at the end of the debate, she endorsed Harris. And I thought that was good. The Trumpies kept saying she was going to endorse Harris. She waited until she heard from her. So it was very, very powerful. Now, she's very popular with young women. And so the question all over is, what about young men? And not only young men, young black men. We still haven't won them all over. Many of them still, have issues. But I think there is momentum. I think her debate performance let her know, and let us all know, she knows how to handle a bully. And that's what he is, a bully, and he couldn't do it. All you had to do is look at the expression on his face. So I'm going to leave that there. I mean, we could talk about the debate for a whole few minutes, but I've got a couple other things I want to lift up.
Okay.
The issue of gun violence is really quite frightening. The young man who killed 4 people in Windsor, Georgia, they had indications. Here's what I would ask you, Lyndia. If there was a black child, someone said, this child has a gun and he's coming to shoot up the school, would they have gone to his daddy's house and had a cordial conversation?
Oh, my goodness.
Well, they simply have arrested his behind.
Whole different story.
Exactly.
And the mother called the school that morning.
So yes, conceding the child grew up, the young man grew up in horrible circumstances, watched his daddy beat his mom got addicted to drugs, et cetera, et cetera. That ain't the point. The point is that he killed 4 people. And the dad has been arrested, but this is just a horrible circumstance. We got to look at guns. I mean, it didn't come up much this evening, but it really should come up. We need to talk about the availability of guns, especially these rapid assault items. Now, the other comment, which we'll probably delve into a bit next week, is the possibility of a government shutdown.
Yes,
Congress is just back. Congress is just back, but the Mike Johnson has all these things that he wants to add to appropriations bills. Democrats aren't having it. What we're going to need is 4 or 5 good Republicans to cross the aisle, and there are fewer and fewer of them around, but to cross the aisle and make sure that we don't have a government shutdown. But if we do, we're talking about the jobs of over 55,000 Americans if we have a government shutdown. So that's looming in the horizon. Now, this week, of course, we've spent 2 days, Wednesday, Thursday, and now today, Friday, enjoying Congressional Black Caucus, all the brain trusts and everything else that are going on. But now everybody enjoys caucus. Now, put your take your bedroom slippers off and put your combat boots on, because we have work to do.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Julianne. I'm so glad you were here to talk about this tonight. Thank you so much. We're going to go to our commercial break, and we'll be back in a moment.
If it wasn't for my care coach at AmeriHealth, I probably wouldn't be so healthy right now. As a man, we don't get checkups or see a doctor regularly anyways. It's probably just a man thing because none of my partners go either. We know we should, but we just don't, and hope it works out.
So what changed for you?
AmeriHealth assigned me a care coach, somebody that gives one-on-one help, answer questions, explain things, and help set my appointments. She also helped me understand what having high blood pressure really means and ways to manage it so it doesn't kill me. It ain't nothing to play with. If you're a member of AmeriHealth, ask for a care coach. I'm glad I got mine.
At AmeriHealth, if you need a care coach, you can have one. Just call us at 1-877-759-6224 to get connected. 1-877-759-6224. This program is funded in part by the government of the District of Columbia Department of Healthcare Finance. Mayor Muriel Bowser.
Washington and former religion columnist Lyndia Grant.
Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a segregated Montgomery bus. In lectures on brotherhood, Ms. Parks often said, "People always say that I didn't give up my seat because I was tired." But that wasn't true. I was not tired physically. I was not old. I was 42. No, the only tired I was tired of giving in. Driven out of Montgomery by harassment and death threats, Detroit, Michigan became her new home. Rosa Parks will always be remembered as the mother of the civil rights movement. Raised in the AME church, she once said, "I remember finding such comfort and peace while reading the Bible."
Read more in the religion column of the Washington Informer, an award-winning African-American newspaper. We don't report crime or gossip, just positive news. Pick up the Washington Informer or visit us online at WashingtonInformer.com. Call 202-561-4100 for more information.
This is Frank Smith with the African American Civil War Museum in Washington, D.C., located at 1925 Vermont Avenue Northwest on the Green Line. Did you know that a recent study found that children who visit museums do better in school and in life than children who do not? So parents, teachers, and preachers, let's get moving. I promise you, if you bring your children to the African American Civil War Museum, they will be inspired by the images that they see. They will be impressed by our living history reenactors who are always available, and they will be involved in our scavenger hunt that takes them throughout our exhibit. That's the African American Civil War Museum, 1925 Vermont Avenue. Our hours are 10 to 6:30 on weekdays, 12 to 4 on Saturdays and Sundays. See it. Be inspired.
For tuning in to the Lyndia Grant Show. We are here again this week. It's Friday. And our second guest is attorney Dana Stebbins. Dana Stebbins and I go way back to the 1980s when she was chair of the Women in Business Committee in Washington, D.C., but she was an attorney at that time and has done a lot of great things over the years. I'm sure you've heard me give her background, but because we don't have but a 30-minute show, I'm not going to go into that. But trust me, look up Attorney Dana Stebbins. She has been talking about the state of democracy in America, and this week her topic is, this is the most consequential election in modern American history. And I need to ask Dana, why do you believe that that is so?
Thank you, Lyndia. I'm glad to be back again, and I'm happy to talk about this, particularly in light of the fact that we only have about 40-plus days until the election. This election is really an election which pits two divergent concepts against each other for the control of America. One is about the state of the democracy, continuing democracy, supporting the rule of law, allowing all citizens to have equal access to opportunities. One is that side. The other is about creating a dictatorship where only certain people would be in control of the government process. And that dictator would tell everyone else how they could or could not live. It truly is that drastic a difference. The ideas and concepts that are supporting one of these candidates, and I don't even need to tell you which one, are white supremacists who believe that the survival of America depends on returning control of the country to white Americans, to eliminating immigration, to eliminating diversity, to eliminating preferential treatment of any kind for disadvantaged minorities, and allowing only certain people to have access to power. That is why this is consequential, because if they're able to turn the page, meaning turn this country back, and if they control the Congress and the White House, it will be years before we could do anything about it. I'll point out, before I go any further, that what's happened to the Supreme Court. When we somehow manage to end up with justices who are beholden to an ideology rather than to the law, who interpret everything in the most conservative and racist ways they can, and interpret the laws that have been passed as invalid, and the need to create other laws, that is what the Supreme Court is doing. That is what our country would look like if this election does not turn out the way we all hope it will.
That was what I was going to ask you next. What would our country look like?
Well, I made a list. I'm going to try to get through them all before our time is up.
If we become a dictatorship, yes, let's tell the listeners.
If we become a dictatorship or a fascist country, here's what would happen. Public education would no longer be a right. They're already talking about eliminating the Department of Education. Only certain students will get to go to school beyond high school. Private schools would get all the public funding, and everybody else would have to fight over books, teachers, and resources. Civil servants would be fired. People who work in the government now, who become civil servants and have tenure, would no longer have tenure. They would be fired. And they would be serving at the pleasure of the dictator or the dictatorial government that's in place. And only people that would be hired are those people who agree with the political aspirations of the ruling group. Voting would be restricted by state laws as opposed to a national right to vote. States would be able to pass their own laws which govern the right to vote. You may have to produce a birth certificate to prove that you were born in the United States of America in order to vote. You might have to produce proof that you live where you say you live by more than a driver's license. So voting would be restricted. Medicare and Medicaid is questionable because that is not, in their view, a right. It is something that is a privilege, and everybody should not get it. Social Security would be eliminated. No longer would people be able to count on being able to retire and receive the benefits of their labor, which is really money they put into the system. But they would divert that money and use it for something else, and so you may not get your Medicare or Medicaid benefits. Social Security, I said, would be eliminated. The Supreme Court would be able to reverse years of progress for minorities and women because they would control the court. 2 more appointments by a conservative, racist president would allow them to have control of the Supreme Court forever. Term limits on the time justice is conserved would never be enacted. No ethics rules would be enacted, and so they would be in control of the country. We would have deportation, mass deportation of immigrants, unless they're from a country in Europe. All of the other countries where people of color come from, Haiti, South America, those people would be deported, and no one else from those countries will be allowed in the United States. There would be tax cuts for the ultra-wealthy, corporations and individuals, and the rest of us would have to cover the cost of government. So therefore, government services would be decreased because the amount of money they would be getting them would be less. The cost for the average American family, because you would be losing all the benefits you currently have, would go up at least by $2,000 per family. And then last but not least, white supremacy would govern everything. I heard a lady on the radio actually say this the other day. Even though she doesn't like the candidate who's running, the Republican candidate, because of the type of person he is, he's the only person that said that he would guarantee that white people control the United States. And therefore, he's going to get her vote because the United States was created for white people and should be governed by white people.
Wow. And that's why we have so many, even though we're hearing all this and we have this huge book that everybody's talking about that you read all of, so many people still want what Donald Trump is saying because of white supremacy. I may not be the only reason, because it's also about money, but I know that them being in charge and doing things the way they want, and it's so many federal government employees in the District of Columbia area, Dana. I even was one, and we used to call that a good government job. I want all of you government workers out there to know that Donald Trump would hire all the people that he want in there, people that are going to do what he say. That's what she was saying. Yes,
and he would eliminate seniority and tenure, and those civil service jobs would be gone. And you would decimate a city like Washington, D.C., which was built around civil servants and the benefits of serving in the federal government. But the state governments would also be impacted because it would filter down. You know, the elected people in the states would be the same people that were sanctioned by the hierarchy, the dictatorial process. So we would have so few freedoms, you wouldn't recognize America if this comes to pass. And what I'm telling everybody is the only way to stop this is to vote in massive numbers. Because remember, we talked about before, it is not the number of popular votes you get that gets you elected. It's the electoral college votes. And in states where they have the most electoral college votes, we are trailing. The only way we're going to gain control of those states and the electoral votes is to have enough popular votes turn out to vote against this tyranny, to vote against this reprehensive. We have got to. That's the only chance we have of saving our country.
And I just want to close by saying, remember when Trump was going out of office and he was appointing people that didn't have to go before the Congress for approval? He was putting people in secretary positions anytime he felt like it, and regardless of what their background was. That's just a reminder, because you saw it happening.
Yes.
It's a reminder that what Attorney Dana Stebbins just said is true, and that would be what he would continue.
So let me end by saying this.
Yes.
Let me end by reminding people of this. Your vote is your power. Your vote is the only power that you have to control the future. As Donald Trump said, if he loses, there will be a bloodbath in this country, because none of them will accept the legitimate outcome of this election. The only way we have any chance is that it's so overwhelming. Our victory is so overwhelming that they can't possibly turn it around. So your vote is your power. Please exercise it and tell everyone in your family, your neighbors, your friends, your church, your school, everyone to go to the polls on November 5th.
And even hold voter registration drives, because
Yes.
you can in D.C. you can register all the way up until Election Day, and even if, from what I've read, it's correct, you can even register that day and still vote.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can in D.C. Yes.
So I want people to make sure to host some of those voter registrations. I intend to do one with my church. I just got to get everything set up. All right. Well, Dana, that was good. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you could be here with us today. We'll look forward to you being on again with us next month, in the month of October. It's going to only be a few more weeks before Election Day.
Yeah,
So,
and by then we will have an idea of where we stand in the polls and what it looks like, and we'll refocus everybody again on this important election.
All right. Thank you, Dana. I'm going to go to my close now. I hope you all enjoyed Dr. Julianne Malvo and Attorney Dana Stebbins this week on the Lyndia Grant Show here on Spirit 1340 WYCB. Words, thoughts, and deeds have a boomerang effect, so be careful what you send out. Scripture says, my people perish for the lack of knowledge. So think on these things. From the Lyndia Grant Show, I'm your host, Lyndia Grant. Until next week, good day.
Thank you for listening to the Lyndia Grant Show. Think on these things with your host, Lyndia Grant.